All right, it's 5:31. We'll go ahead and start. We'll adjourn this meeting, get this meeting done. The roll call's been done. On the agenda, the first thing we have is the election of officers for 2018. I asked that we have the bylaws printed up, and that's of course one of the things we're supposed to do every year. So we'll take that into consideration first. Lizette and I basically will step down and let someone else take care of the chair and co-chair. One of the things we had discussed was that since we're half active, half retired, maybe we should have the same as far as chair, co-chair. It worked out well. She and I worked out extremely well. So basically, what we're going to do is we need nominations for chair. Anybody? Okay. Any other nominations? Bill.
I respectfully decline.
Sit down. Okay, that takes care of that. Anyone else? Okay, then it looks like since there is no one, we'll close the nominations and by acclamation, we'll just simply say,
Got a full plate coming up.
well, I think a lot of us, I certainly do. Okay, co-chair, and so Nancy is a retiree, so if we can have someone from the active end of it, the one who's a
Does
staff
it say
member.
that in the governance?
No, it doesn't, but
Okay, so I think we should follow what this says, unless you're changing it.
well, we would need to add an amendment to it.
You can't.
We had talked about it before, and we had all agreed, but I don't think it ever went into a formal. We'd have to go back through the notes and whatnot, but it's not in the.
Does anybody want to volunteer?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
He wants
let's
to
have-
volunteer.
That'd be cool. No, come on, you can do it.
Can you do vice chair?
No.
Does that
Nope.
entail? That's a lot.
I respect, we got a lot of stuff coming up.
Clyde, you'd be great at this.
No, I'm not.
Seriously.
No, thank you.
Oh, come on, Clyde.
If nobody will volunteer, I'll nominate Kate.
No, I'm retired.
It's not in the bylaws. Nobody active is agreeing to do it.
That's what I said, until.
Yeah, this was something we had talked about, and we had all agreed, yeah, this is how it should be done.
No need for it.
But we never did.
He already.
Oh, he already declined.
I have too much stuff coming up.
I nominate.
Who?
No, she said no. Yes.
Okay, then,
Okay, so you nominate.
Yes,
yes. Okay, so, anyone else?
by default.
Anyone else? Well, by default, we now have a chair and co-chair, and the meeting is yours.
Oh, okay. The first item is to approve the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Okay, are there any additions or corrections, or any additions or changes to the agenda before we vote? I have a question. Did everyone get a letter from, I do not know her, but from someone named Penny Black?
Yes.
You got,
Yeah, we all got an email.
could we add this to agenda just for the purposes of referring it to Mona to respond properly?
I think this has a lot to deal with Mona, more or less, and because this is Medicare, yada, yada.
Right.
There are things here that I think we don't know about.
Right, so my question is, can we add it to the agenda and then
Discuss it.
vote to refer it to
Yes.
Mona?
Oh,
Just so
that-
there's
yeah.
a formal,
That's-
we do something with their letter and she doesn't think we just
I
ignore it.
think we should.
So moved.
That's fine,
So you want to add that to your motion to approve the agenda with,
yeah.
and adding 2.7 would be
Right, correct.
Ms. Black's situation.
Fill that, yeah.
All those in favor? Opposed?
Then I have a question. Are we adding on the agenda to amend our rules of government?
We can also discuss that but then again,
Ask you.
Do you want to make a motion?
if we don't get any
I
Any
move,
volunteers?
I move that, okay, go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think the idea was really good, but at this moment, because we don't have anybody who's active, willing to do the position, it would not be productive because we wouldn't have anybody to do that position.
I think we
Maybe wait
have
until the next
if
meeting.
someone's available, because not everybody's
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah,
It's available.
that's true, yeah. We can maybe wait till the next meeting and have it as part of the agenda.
Yeah,
for
so
the
people
next
can
meeting.
see it's on the agenda, because right now, if you add things to the agenda, people don't see it, the
Right.
concerns fit, so
Yeah.
I can wait till next week.
Okay.
Good point.
So the agenda's been approved as it is?
Adding Ms. Black's.
Correct.
adding
Yes,
the-
as
yeah.
amended, correct. 2.3, approval of minutes of December the 20th. Do we have minutes?
They should be on handouts online.
They're attached.
Yeah.
Have a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion.
Okay, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I'm
Opposed?
sorry, who moved and seconded? That was fast.
I'll second.
Clyde made the motion.
Okay.
2.4, retiree vesting. Is that Mona?
I can address it. I can start the conversation. Basically, and I have both the vesting schedule as amended, well, in 2015 and 2017. But I think what y'all had asked for, most importantly, was what I have is retiree report for insurance committee, which shows a breakdown of how many people, if you look at that handout that's attached, how many people since 2013 through 2017 retired, and this is calendar year, which is our plan year, who had fewer than 10 years at LPSS. So like in 2013, you had 120 people retired that year, and 5 were on the health plan but had fewer than 10 years of service. And then all the way to the right, I indicate how many years they had. And you can see that for each year shown. And then a breakdown below of those individuals' Medicare eligibility. And the point being that, and we had already suspected it was a very small number, and I think this pans out to show you that the effort that we would have to expend to put the vesting in place may not have the kind of return on investment we thought we might have in the beginning. So the staff basically is asking you guys to consider recommending to the board that we not, I don't want to say waste our time, but that we not expend a lot of resources on setting that up when it's not really going to save much money, but it might cause a lot of what we would say misère to a handful of people. Also, HR has approached me with the fact that some people might not want to come, good talent, in their twilight years if they think that they're going to be penalized on their insurance. So that's just how we feel about it, and open that up for y'all's discussion and what
Any
y'all want to.
comments or questions? I think that the summary was that the staff is saying that they think doing away with the vesting or putting it on hold at least would allow them another tool to attract some employees,
Right.
and that few people are involved in the vesting, fewer than used to be years ago when it was, surrounding parishes were different than us. Matt?
I guess I agree with the employee portion of that, because it really isn't enough, and I know the administrative background it's going to take to try to keep track of that. But when I was talking to the staff, and I think it was, their more anecdotal was that the problem was not necessarily on the employee side, but on the dependent side. That you may have teachers that don't hop into the parish, but may work for the parish for 20 years and may have a husband or a wife that works in another industry, and they may not even be in insurance, but their spouse may be on another insurance, and then right before they retire, they add their dependent or they add their husband or wife on, and then we have them for what would be the expensive years of when they haven't contributed in the healthy years to the plan. I think when I was talking to Tish, she said that's a lot more common when they get phone calls right at the end towards retirement, people adding their spouses back on right at the end before they retire, and then they become a liability of the fund over that time. I just want to bring that to the group because we looked at one side of the picture, but I think the seesaw is much heavier on the dependent side. I don't know, and Tish said she didn't know if that was something we could wrap our hand around, as something that Blue Cross might be able to do, to look up if, is that truly a lot, or is that something like that that's not a lot?
But I think that was initially when we voted on this, and I thought it was much later than 15. My memory could serve me wrong. But I think that was brought up, and I think it was a board member that brought it up to our attention. Again, my memory might be lagging, but that was the rationale.
I agree.
It was, and what happened was also, it was a year where Lafayette Parish's salary was much greater. We were getting an influx of people from St. Landry Parish in their last year, and that's how some of it was presented to us. And they were coming on their last year and then keeping the insurance because St. Landry Parish did not do that. So that's where the discussion came up, and then we talked about, but if you come in, 1 year, then you pay 90%. If you come in, if you're 10 years, and the system pays 100%. And I think if I remember correctly, that's how we had come across with that.
Would it be possible for us to follow the staff recommendation and, in essence, suspend vesting and have it, Matt, you may not like this, but have it revisited annually at budget time?
But I don't like the idea of suspending it because it was never put into place. So when you say suspend something, that meant it was in place.
So it's
And
not-
it was before
No,
2015 that we voted on it. So I'm not in an agreement to just say let's do away with it.
So is it in existence now?
No.
We don't have a way to administer it yet.
Well,
We're
Then
working
why
on
not?
a
mistaken, it's in existence, but it's not been implemented.
It's never been
Right.
implemented.
It's never been
It was voted
implemented.
on.
Right.
I went through the handout that Mona had sent us via the email, and the numbers that I'm coming up with are probably $14,000 to $20,000 a year and maybe extended costs total. When we're talking about a $46 million budget, I think the detriment that we do to recruiting personnel is probably way, way more than any benefit we're gaining by trying to save $14,000 to $20,000. Now, I would be interested in trying to look in a little bit more detail as far as adding the dependents on.
And my thing, for information-wise, we're making our decision on half the pie. And I think the other part of the pie may be much bigger than that, and it may not be. But I think we need to probably suspend it because we're not doing it.
No,
You're
Matt,
not-
Or
you're not doing it.
just
One of the-
stop it or whatever. But I would like to at least attempt to see if we want to still do the dependent side.
Because on the dependent side,
I remember that
particularly.
being a problem. Is there any way that we could get some numbers, like for the last 3 or 4 years, how many dependents have gotten on within the last, is that a
That's
possibility?
not mine.
It's not.
We hadn't been tracking that. We
Okay.
are now, like this year, and we can definitely start now, and we could revisit it
And
a
that way
year
we
from
can,
now.
and that way we can
Yeah.
analyze it every year and see whether or not it has
It's
become
really a problem.
Because I remember when it was a problem, you're right, people were jumping on board the last year.
Well, something else too, Matt, we need to think about is that the spouse coming in probably works on the outside and therefore would be on Medicare, okay? Which basically Medicare would take care of the bulk of it, and the cost of the system here would be minimal. No, at best.
Not necessarily.
Not if they
I
retire
retired
20
at
years,
55.
that's a long
That's
time
not
for
necessarily
Medicare.
true. If you're a
Jump in.
young retiree,
Yeah,
Well, that's
you
different.
could have 10 years before you get on Medicare.
can I make a request?
That's
We're
it.
having discussion and we don't have a motion on the floor. So can someone make a motion, one way or the other, and have a second, and then we can vote however we want to vote? But can we have a motion
I'll
on the floor?
move that we suspend the current, what is it, I don't know if it's a policy or just whatever it is, of the vesting, but gather information for the current year relating to the dependents and be brought back next year to review once we have data on is it an issue or not.
Is there a second to
I'll
Matt's
second
motion?
the motion.
Okay. Is there any more discussion?
Question.
All those in, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. OPEB, our favorite subject.
My name is Burton Colder. I've been asked to, where the auditors, Mandy, Self, and I conduct the annual audit for the Lafayette Parish School Board, and have been doing it for a number of years. We've been asked to come today and to try and answer some of the questions And believe me, we don't have all the answers to the OPEB situation, but just to give you a little bit of history on it, I think it began, this was implemented or was set up by the AICPA or GASB in this case, Governmental Accounting Standards Board, way back in 2009. And they said that, the public bodies needed to start getting an actuarial computation of the estimated cost to fund the retiree cost of health care costs. It's like might want to talk about it as a health care pension. So every year you have to get or not every year, every other year we have to get an actuarial computation based on the employees that are currently in the system and how much it would take to fund them at retirement with health care. That liability is in the neighborhood of $426 million, is what's estimated. It's in the annual report, which is about 200 pages long. We get this information. This system is one of about 10, I think, in the state. Not school systems. There's only like 4 school systems, I think, that have funded something towards it. DeSoto being, I think, at the top of the heap, that they funded most of theirs, from what we understand. There's several sheriff's departments that have funded, maybe 4 of them, that have funded theirs or partially funded. But there's a total of 10 public bodies in this state that have done this. It's quite costly. This system has set aside, as we speak, with about $13 million that has been set aside in a trust fund to help the funding of this for retirees down the road. As you know, this is a drop in the bucket when they're estimating $426 million. It's like 3% of what is required to be funded. But at least we've got a start. And I think your bonding agencies, from what we understand, looks at this favorably, that you're trying to fund it. Matt, you could maybe address that. I think that,
It was mentioned in the Fitch rating, and it was also brought up when we talked to them in Wall Street. That was one of the questions they asked, is the OPEB. And they also mentioned in the last rating that the new change, because they're changing it yet again, next year, they're going to change it again, which is going to make it even more important that people establish a trust. And we're hearing from our investment guy that there's already 3 more school districts that have contacted him. We've been contacted, and people copying our structure, sending in information, the attorney that we used to set it up back in 2010. So it's an issue.
But currently, what this school system and most school systems are doing, they're paying as you go. They're paying this coverage. And we keep records. You're in the self-insurance plan here, so you have records of the contributions going into the plan. To give you some numbers, it's about $52 million that's going into the self-insurance fund, okay? Now, this is not the trust fund that's been set aside. This is just to fund the benefits, because you're self-insured. Of those premiums that are being put into this $52 million of premiums, 66% of this, 2/3 of it, is being funded by the general fund of this system and or the grants. Because there's some employees that are working for the grant funds, Chapter 1 and so on. And those are being funded by those particular funds. 1/3 of it is funded from the employees, okay? And then of the claims that were paid, the last 2 years has been about $44.5 million of claims paid. Out of this $52 million, they paid $44 million of claims. Of the $44 million of claims, about 1/3 of that is pertaining to the retirees. The other 2/3 are paid on behalf of current employees, okay? So it's approximately $13 million that is costing this system in the health fund to pay for the retiree health cost, okay? Now, you might say, well, what's the other costs that are involved with, if we put $52 million in, we're spending $44 million. Well, that's to cover other insurance costs, contractual services, and you have a certain limit, as everyone knows, of a stop loss. And to fund that extra stop loss, you ought to buy insurance. So they're funding it with insurance costs. And there's other operating and administrative costs That's what makes up the total of the 52 million minus the 44 million in claims. The last 2 years, this system has had a surplus in 2016 on the self-insurance fund of about $1.7 million. In 17, the surplus, the excess of premiums paid in versus cost and operational cost has been about $2.5 million. So the last two years, you've made about $4 million in the self-insurance fund. As of June of 17, we had about $8.2 million in the self-insurance fund. Okay? I don't know where we stand now, Matt. Do you have any idea? Or maybe as of December, this was at
That was
June. As of June.
We haven't, well, because we have the way our payroll works, it's hard to tell until the end.
Till the
We
end,
might have some stuff, but
8.2 million is a surplus?
That's the accumulated surplus.
That's the
that
fund
we
balance.
have in the fund. That's the fund balance.
retained earnings.
It's retained earnings fund balance that we have in the fund. So that's the pay-as-you-go fund, so to speak. Now, in the trust fund, which is the OPEB as we're talking about, we have $13 million set aside.
So Heidi's budget revision that's gonna come up at the next board meeting shows the fund balance at 9.7.
Okay, so it has increased in approximately in the last 8 months, we've increased another millions.
9 point what, Mona?
9.7. That's an attachment on this item.
And I think what's being talked about possibly putting into the budget is to transfer an additional $400,000 into the OPEB trust. Okay. Now remember what I said earlier is 2/3 of the premiums going into the group health fund is funded by the employees. By the board, and 1/3 by the employees. Okay. So if you factor that in with the 400,000 that would be put into the trust fund, you're talking about that's 4,433 employees in the system or participants. That's $90 a year per participant. Okay, that's what that 400,000 would be. And of that, it would cost $30 per participant to put that 400,000 into the trust fund. Not a whole lot, $30. And, that's what, $2.50 per month per participant. And of course, the general fund and the grant funds would put up the other $60. It's about $90 a year. 60 would come, in round numbers, would come from the board or from the general fund, and the balance would come from the employees going into the trust.
And the grants.
And the grants, right.
So say that one more time.
Okay. Of the it's costing about, for the 400,000 that's proposed to be contributed, $90 per participant. That's what that equates to. If you take the 400,000 divided by 4,433 participants, it's about $90. And of that $90, that's annual cost per participant. 2/3 of that would come from the general fund or the grant funds. So coming from the school system, which is about $60. The other 1/3 or $30 per year would come from their participants as their contribution.
Does that conclude your presentation? Or, I didn't know if you were finished and would take questions.
I think that pretty well covers it. Is there anything else that you guys can think of that we need to cover? I kind of made some bullet points that I wanted to go over and make sure I explain it. I think I've hit everything, Nancy.
Mona, are you expecting a vote from this committee whether or not to support OPEB?
I thought it was information, because we have newer members who may not understand what the OPEB is.
Yeah, it was mostly for information purposes.
I think y'all needed to take
And by the way, thank you so much, because it's now crystal clear for me. Okay, I really did have some question marks beforehand.
So
It was explained, but it was never explained in this manner, so,
glad to hear that.
oh, yeah.
Anyone else has any questions? You do? Okay.
Carol, I have some
Carol has
clear.
some questions.
So you're telling me of the $400,000, a third of it will come from our insurance plan? Is that my
No,
understanding?
ma'am.
No.
So what are you
Individual
saying? Wait, what are you saying?
From the employees, from the participants of the plan.
Straight from the participants of the
Participants,
plan?
$30 per participant for the year.
Okay.
That's where the 400,000 would, of that 400,000 would come from them. The other balance of that, or $60 per participant, if you want to equate it that way, would come from the general fund / the grant funds.
I do have a question about that, because in the past, it's been presented. And I'm be upfront, I've always been opposed to this because there's so few school systems in this state and the economy here is so low. And I understand your presentation, I understand the purpose of it, I really do. But in the past, it's always been 400,000 from insurance fund, okay? And then last year, when there was some debate about it, we were told that 200,000 would come from general fund and 200,000 would come from insurance. So we were led to believe that, okay, it's just, but when you look at the budget, all 400,000 came out of this. So I think it, and I understand what you're saying, how much general fund contributes, but I don't know what other word to use, and I usually try to be very politically correct, but apparently, you know, it was pretty deceptive last year.
Yeah, the
It was-
general fund put up 750.
750.
In addition to the 400,000? Okay.
1,150.
We had 1,150,000 if you look at, well, you don't
Okay.
have the schedule, but it was
That's not what we were
1,150,000
told.
that went into the trust.
We were told it could be 200,000 and 200,000. Am I correct?
But I think the proposal this year is for the 400, in my understanding.
Yeah, same.
But last year, I don't understand why we were told something.
We never showed that on the,
400 from
on the
where?
budget, it was always
It
coming
was
out
always
of
400 in the budget, I don't remember the 2-2. The
I thought it was
general
coming
fund
from
put
y'all.
in
Where's the
750.
400 coming from?
The
We thought
400
Total
is,
was 400.
2/3 is coming from the general fund.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
And I understand
Grant funds,
technically that is
balance.
correct, but we were not led to believe that last year is what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say. You know, because I know we were told 200 and 200. We split it. At first, we were told it was only going to be 200,000. We were told 400,000, then 200,000, and then the board would put up the 200,000, and, you know,
So what is the board putting in?
I think what happened in that, maybe that was a recommendation of the committee, but when it got to the board, they put
They
it back as
changed it.
400.
that is
Yes,
exactly
because
what
Dr.
happened.
Aguilar had agreed to lower
Yes.
yes.
the contribution.
Yes.
And when it went to the board floor, they
Yes.
went back to the 400.
That is
And then they
correct.
went to the general fund and put in 750.
Yeah, but we weren't told that. I think that's,
Yeah,
that is
that's
we were told at our last meeting, at our meeting prior to the board's decision, that it was gonna be the $400,000 total, and 100 something, maybe close to 200, was coming from your insurance fund, the rest was coming from the board. But that, I remember when it was changed on the board floor, I don't remember the 750, I do remember them going back to the 400.
Yeah, the general fund later came back and put in the 750.
Later when, during the budget process?
Yeah, during the ending of the budget process.
It was in last fiscal year,
Last
Nancy.
year.
It was in last fiscal year.
Last budget revision.
like
So
a
what's-
budget revision.
Yeah.
It wasn't in the budget,
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
a
that's
budget
what I'm
It was a
revision.
revision,
What-
right.
what-
It's a big difference.
Big
I mean,
difference.
yeah.
Can we talk one at a time? Can we find out when the 750 was put into the budget? Was it during the budget hearing?
No, it was
Or it was
a
after the
revision.
budget was adopted and then you had $750 extra somewhere and you put it in
That's
OPEB?
what happened.
It was in the final budget revision.
Final budget revision before the budget was adopted?
You have the adopted budget, and then you have your revisions during the year.
Yeah, that's
It was
what
the final version of the budget for the fiscal
I do
year.
agree.
So after the budget had been adopted,
Correct.
what was adopted in the budget was 400.
Yes.
And then you all found 750 that you added to that 400 that we didn't know about.
Typically, at the end of the school year, if we see that there are excess funds, it gives us an opportunity, or the board an opportunity to visit a few things. Do they want to make a transfer to capital funds? And do they want to make a transfer to the OPEB trust? So typically, that budget revision is addressed at the end of the year to ensure that the funds are there. The contributions in previous years, because that 750 is not the only contribution that the general fund has made, has been in the final revision where we verified that the funds were there to allow us to do that.
Could we make a request just that next time that happens, we don't have to have a meeting because we meet quarterly and that doesn't necessarily coincide with when your revision is going to be made. But could we get an email saying that the 400,000 we think it is today may end up being 1.7 million at the end of the school year? When you make that budget revision, can Mona just email us so we're all on the same page?
Sure.
One thing I want to just go along with Billy's saying, and maybe Nancy, you sat on the city council, as you know, to do a budget amendment, you have to do those generally before the fiscal year end, with the city being on October year end. School systems in this state have a uniqueness that they allow them an extra 75 days in which to amend their budget. So they can go up to September 15th. Okay, and that's what Billy's talking about. So they have the beauty of having the somewhat final
No
numbers,
kidding.
and then they can amend it. Am I correct in what I'm saying? It's a statute that's on the books of this state that allows all school systems to amend their budget up until September 15th. Okay? So that's when he talks about budget revisions, that's when that was done, because I remember him calling me about capital projects funds. And we discussed it, and they put some monies in capital projects, which the board approved. And this 750 was also put in there.
But I think I think the problem is, and the confusion comes from, we were told $400,000 and then there was a budget revision we didn't know about.
Didn't know about.
So it's 1 point whatever million, and it's just a communication issue. I
That's
think if we're notified, it's not, at least we're all on.
Just out of
Oh,
curiosity.
it makes sense.
Why are there only 4 and maybe a couple more coming on board school systems that contribute to this?
That's hard for me to answer, because I don't know. It depends on their financial situation.
And I know DeSoto had shale oil, they had
Yeah.
Boku surplus,
So-
and they paid it off right
They
away,
paid
and
it.
I understand that.
Right.
I mean, that, obviously, that was.
It's mainly a funding thing. It's not that they
Yeah.
don't want to do it, they just don't have the funding. It's too different.
Yes, I do. In the budget, the 18 budget, is the board going to allocate money in the budget for OPEB? That's my question. Not in a revised budget.
Currently, I don't think there's anything.
There's nothing
budgeted
current.
for the general fund side. And usually at the end, we try to at least do something, if not match what the insurance fund is doing. Because it's gonna have to be a joint effort. We're trying to get to the normal cost. The normal cost is the amount of money that it takes to cover everybody for this year. So if I'm a brand new teacher, I'm a first grade teacher, I'm starting this year. If we can cover the cost for 1 year, I'm covered. If we can do that for 30 years, when she retires, her insurance is guaranteed in a fund for her. That cost is a little under $7 million a year. That's kind of the long end total. If we could ever get to that point, then it would fix itself. We're never going to get to the 400 million, but you can chip away at it every year, and then with that plus interest. So we have about $13 million right now. Of that, about $1 million is interest. So that's money that wouldn't have existed to start with. And that $13 million, we're looking at a fiscal cliff. They've had a special session. They spent $1 million on a special session, didn't do a thing. So if it got really bad and the fiscal cliff came and they saying, we're going to cut school systems, and those school systems, we're going to allow them to cut their budgets, and we're going to remove the law that guarantees everybody health insurance. And they could do that through whatever legislative means, constitutional means. You know, GM did it, Ford did it, all the big companies that used to give you pension benefits when you retire have pretty much all ended that. We would have $13 million, and it looks like that would cover about a year. We could keep our retirees funded for that gap special with that money for the year because it's been put aside. If that would be the case, that would ever come about. I don't hopefully think that'll never come about. I don't say it ever will. But to have that money there, plus you having, with the employees really only paying $30 of just the 400 plus an additional 750 from the general fund, that's all money to help ensure that when teachers retire, that there's money to cover their health insurance in a separate place just for them.
To answer Carol's question, what's the amount that's going to be proposed to the board for OPEB in this new budget?
In the adopted, but in the proposed initial budget, zero.
Zero. Okay, because I have to answer to a
From
lot
general
of
fund, but
retirees.
400,000 from insurance, is that right?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
In the proposed, yes.
So when that retiree is going to ask me, Carol, we might have a very bad year this year, I pray to God not. And the only money that could possibly be going in is the 400,000. That could be a possibility, right?
And it's a moving target, because didn't I read someplace that inflation is also built into that? So the 426 million next year will be even more because of inflation. That's what I thought.
Yep.
So it's a moving target. We'll never, ever reach that target. We won't.
The likelihood is you're
Yeah,
probably
shale
correct.
Yeah, shale oil, maybe we should look at that.
It would be nice though to reach the $7 million mark, and I know that's more achievable. And so what you do is you pay as you go until your current retirees are no longer on the plan. And then your active employees, you have that money set aside, so when they come to retire, in theory, their premiums, the board share, could be taken out of that trust, which would allow the board to manage the benefit or fund the benefits, to keep the benefits longer, if that makes sense. You know how we adjust benefits because when things, expenses could increase each year. Well, if we get to that point, it would allow the board, a little bit more flexibility in terms of how long they could, which benefits to keep and how long they keep them. So that would be a benefit.
And this
towards-
parallels the retirement system. So the retirement system wasn't funded. In 1987, they decided, hey, y'all gonna have to start funding this thing because y'all haven't put any money for those people aside. They're just living on a promise. You're gonna have to start putting money in the retirement system to guarantee that when those people retire, they get a retirement check. It's the exact same thing. And what's gonna happen in the year 2032?
2029?
2029, we're going to finish paying that 1987 problem that they started fixing in 1987. Our retirement rate should drop from about 29% to about 6%. In that case, you're going to have a huge opportunity to maybe fund the health insurance part of your retirement. So at that point, we funded the retirement part of your retirement. But at this point, if we're further down the road, that might be an opportunity where we have a windfall of money to put into the health insurance part of your retirement, so that both are funded.
We'll put that in writing.
Yes.
I would love it. If I could run for the legislature, I'd be voting for that, but I'm not that crazy.
Any more questions? I have a couple. Burton, do LCG and Lafayette Sheriff or any other public body in this parish have OPEB?
A trust fund.
LCG doesn't
Doesn't
have
have much
post-employment.
OPEB though.
LCG
They don't have
doesn't
post-employment.
And
carry retirees after.
I get the regular agenda for the State Bond Commission.
Yeah.
And there are parishes all over this state that don't have OPEB trusts, that are selling bonds like crazy. So the argument that it's necessary for the sale of bonds,
No, we didn't say
The
that.
interest rate.
It helps with the interest
Interest
rates.
rates.
That's all it does. It doesn't, I mean,
To
you
what
be able to
extent?
sell bonds.
to what
We're
extent
double
does
A.
it
We're
help?
double A rated right now, and plus, right, double A plus.
What's the parish rated?
The parish doesn't have an OPEB,
No, but what's
No,
the
What's
rating?
their bond
I think,
rating?
I think we're double A. I think it's double A.
but the parish doesn't have post-employment benefits. That's why they don't have a trust. They don't give,
They don't offer it.
they don't offer.
That's true, you're
benefits.
cut off at
mandatory.
65. That's
Right.
true. Who decided on the $400,000? What's the rationale for 400,000 rather than 300,000 or 600,000?
Well, it was originally 750 and it got cut down to 400, I think, a couple years ago.
It's
One
just
point
what
put in
we
the
carry
million.
year to
Okay.
year now, once we settled on that number.
And the concern that some retirees have expressed is just what Boyce said. When the retirees are gone, the OPEB, the plan is to have that $7 million to be able to pay for your current employees. But meanwhile, the retirees who will likely never benefit from that are part of the group of people paying that $30 a year. So that's the concern that I've heard expressed.
I'm a little different in that if us partially funding this OPEB, the retirees currently are benefiting from that in the realization of a lower bond tax, a lower interest rate on the bond sales. Therefore, we have lower property taxes. There is a benefit that they are actively receiving today.
But it's the bond. Are you saying that the bond rating or the bond interest rate?
Well, the bond rating, the better the rating, the lower the rate.
Right.
I think that's what
But-
he's saying.
right.
We're saving on interest.
But, for example, the Lafayette Sheriff's Department, do they provide retirement for their employees? They're on the state system, aren't they?
I don't know. They don't have post-employment.
They don't participate in any?
No, they do participate,
They
but I'm
don't
saying
necessarily live in retirees.
they're not required. You guys are required to provide
Right.
this service, this benefit.
But the Sheriff's Department does, don't they?
They do have it, but I think it's limited. I know Iberia, we do Lafayette's work as well. I don't recall right off the top of my head. I know Iberia, he doesn't provide it. So there's no OPEB.
Yeah, Bureau Sheriff.
Iberia share.
Lafayette does. My
It does.
sister-in-law, yeah,
It
my
does.
sister-in-law worked there for 30 years, and she's fully covered. She's fully funded.
And I can tell you the last bond issue, we were 10 times oversubscribed. We were able to drop the interest rate so low, we were able to issue $70 million more in bond proceeds and projects to build by our interest rate. Our bonds are highly, highly sought after.
And so are the cities. I mean, the city hasn't had any trouble selling bonds either, so,
They don't have OPEB, they don't have OPEB problem.
no.
But they also don't have the
extra time
benefit for their
budget either.
employees either.
You're right, they don't have extra time
No.
for it, but this is just a thing that's here for all school systems, not just this system.
Any more questions about OPEB? But you do not need any direction from this committee. All right, next is the health plan. Mr. Fontaine?
All right, good evening, and each of you should have a copy, and we presented this to the board a while back, and this is our year-end analysis of the self-funded plan, along with other costs involved, like the Humana retiree plan costs are encapsulated here. So if you go to page 1, this is the claim summary. You'll see participation at the top, Blue Cross's participation, the Humana participation, total participation count of 5578. That's up basically just a little over 1.3% from the previous year. Medical claims of $25,872,131, prescription of $18,201,231 for total claims of $43,073,000. Plan reimbursements, this could be in the form of reinsurance reimbursements for any one claimant who surpassed the stop-loss deductible, or rebates coming back to the plan, or any subrogation payments back to the plan. Then we have a retiree subsidies and a net cost figure of $41,244,000. You can see that's a pretty significant reduction from the prior year. Our fixed cost, retiree premium from Humana, so the 2016 year totaled $47,325,000, 2017 down 5% on a per employee per month basis, but at $45,495,000. If you go to the bottom and you look at the funding, total funding to the plan of $49,333,000. Net employer cost went from $32 million down to $30,253,000. Our budget loss ratio dropped from 97.4 to 92, and our surplus grew from $1,270,000 to $3,837,000. So much better year from claim statistics. On a per employee per month basis, so we can basically compare apple to apple, because we're going to have a change in participation every year. You know, the group's growing in size and all of that type of thing. So this basically equates it on a per employee per month basis. We see that we had a 13.4% decrease on our medical claims to 463 versus the 401. Largely due to a decrease in the number of high-cost claimants. We had a 34% decrease in inpatient hospital utilization. Prescription drugs increased 7.6%, strictly due to increased increased utilization of high-cost specialty medications, okay? The Humaras, the Enbrels, all of the things that, if you watch TV tonight, prime time, I can promise you 3 of the 4 commercials are gonna be for specialty drugs. They've all got costs anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 a month, even more than that, if the dosage is increased, okay? So these medications didn't, now, if you remember, we did some work on prescription drugs, and a lot of work, okay? Our cost to increase of the plan, once you factor in the increased rebates, actually, we're talking about a per employee per month cost of $255 versus $253. Because of the contractual differences we negotiated and the increased rebates to the plan, instead of having a 7.6% increase, and remember, prior to the work we did, we were increasing at a double-digit clip, okay? So with all of that being said, we were able to stabilize the prescription drug cost, and going into this year, I'll be anxious to report to you numbers from the savings measures we implemented going into this year. So with all of that being said, our total plan cost is down about 5%. Our net employer cost down about 7.6%. And from a surplus standpoint, we increased significantly. Further in the report, I'm going to kind of highlight some different things with you here. We look at enrollment, and I've mentioned to you time after time, especially in the I-49 corridor and with what's going on with our oil and gas economy. You know, school systems we watch really closely, because as the oil and gas industry declined and they lay off workers and all of that, we want to make sure that participation is the number of employees and retirees participating in your plan. Membership is the number of belly buttons, okay? And we don't want to see that we have a much higher percentage increase of belly buttons than we do employees and retirees, because that means that they're getting off of those plans and coming to ours. Nothing we can do about it if they're laid off, because it's a qualifying event, okay? But you guys know from a benefit cost standpoint that this plan is superior to most. A couple of years ago, before all this started, the oil field, in many cases, you know, there was a tight labor market, and they all had co-pay plans, and they paid a large percentage of the premium just like you guys do, okay? That's all changed. A lot of them have high deductible plans, and the only thing the employer pays is with the Affordable Care Act tells them they have to. So the boat captains that went from $5 co-pays and 100% of the premium paid for went to $5,000 deductible plans, and the only portion of the premium they pay for is the employee, and a small portion to keep themselves legal. So they went from free to family coverage of about maybe $1,200 a month. What I'm here to tell you after that explanation is that I don't see that you're being selected against where folks are coming off of your plan. We've got a slight higher increase in membership than we do in percent in participation, but not much. We're talking 1.3% increase in participation, and on membership on page 4, 2.4%. So we're not really having a bad situation of outpacing. If you turn to page 5, you can see that we are paying about 5.8 or 6% more on our dependent spouses than we are on our employees. But I can tell you that's not too bad, because we have several municipalities that we see 30, 40, 50% more for spouses than we do, and they're being selected against because they pay a large portion of the premium. They have a good benefit, and in different areas, as these other employers have amended their plans from a benefit and contribution perspective, these folks have rushed to those plans.
Lynn, does that in any way address what Matt was talking about with the vesting issue?
It's a similar topic, and I'll talk to you real briefly on that. For a long time, people had the mindset of if somebody's gonna cover their dependent over here at retirement, we want them to join several years ahead of time and pay into the plan, okay? Now, that school of thought has changed a little bit, because if you look statistically at a plan, the highest age bracket, okay, for claims is going to be from 55 to 65. Okay, if you think about it, that's when the majority of your claims are. So if you force somebody to cover their dependent earlier, you're in most cases, you're inviting claims into the plan earlier than they need to be. Okay, so there's basically almost two schools of thought there. Okay, we don't want to invite dependents into the plan and draw our cost up, but also at the same time, you don't want to do that earlier than you need to. So
And
just school for thought.
1/3 of the claims is going to retirees and 2/3 to current employees, is that right? Is that what Burton
That's
said?
what Burton said, okay.
Not claims, it was claims? Medical claims on page 6, there's your 13.4% drop. Pretty good looking graph here, because we're all the way back to 2012 and we're sitting here in 2017, and not many employers your size can boast that our cost on a per employee per month basis are down when we look back. Most folks, it looks like straight up. A lot of folks have doubled their medical cost in the last 5-6 years. Prescription claims, once again, 7.6% increase, largely due to the high cost of specialty meds. When we factor in the rebates, we don't really have an increase at all. And our high cost is measured by the top 10 medications increased 34.8%. So what's going on are the manufacturers of these specialty medications are increasing their price. But I can tell you, most of those companies no longer have sales representatives. Those sales representatives now work for the manufacturer to get these pre-authorizations passed, so that the Blue Crosses of the world, or the RX benefits of the world, or all of the CVSs and pharmacy benefit managers will approve that drug. They don't have to sell the physician anymore. They have to get that medication authorized. So if you have moderate plaque psoriasis and you've tried all of the lower cost alternatives, and now you want to take a Humira or a Tesla or anything like that, you have to pass the prior authorization. And that's what's happening. More and more people are utilizing these medications, especially with groups that cover retirees. And Humira's biggest usage is rheumatoid arthritis. So, from a total claims perspective, down that 5.8%. I'm going to skip you to page 10. Biggest reason that we've had a decrease in costs is when you have a 34% decrease in inpatient hospitalization, okay? Some of that has to do with the wellness endeavors that you made, but a lot of it has to do with a little bit of luck too, okay? And from a top diagnosis standpoint, this is what really drove that inpatient number. Circulatory, injury, and musculoskeletal, along with digestive, all had numbers over $20 on a per employee per month basis. In 17, you're talking about significant decreases in all of those areas. Musculoskeletal down about 10%, circulatory down 33%, injury and poisoning down 39%, and there's nothing over $20 on a per employee per month basis. So inpatient hospitalization just looks fantastic. And remember, all of your wellness endeavors, the first thing that's really going to address is things like circulatory, musculoskeletal, diabetes, those types of things. On page 12, circulatory, just about even. Neoplasm, factors influencing health, does have maintenance chemo in that, and all of those areas basically almost equal. From a top facility standpoint, even better this year, because when we have more utilization towards Lafayette General, that's our best discounts, okay? You don't have any MD Anderson in this year, and that makes a big difference, because MD Anderson doesn't have huge discounts. They don't need to, okay? Supply and demand, the treatment's coming to them because of their expertise in the marketplace.
They're doing a lot of articulation though with the hospitals here too.
Yeah, that's
So it's a help for us.
And just in years where you have more of your inpatient, outpatient facility mixed here locally in Louisiana, okay? And you don't have a lot of high dollar stuff that went out to specialty hospitals, where it be either Houston, Birmingham, Cleveland, wherever it might be. At the same time, when you have more towards the General's got best discounts in Lafayette.
Sure.
Okay, that helps out on your overall percentage. For a school system to have 87% generic utilization, every single one of you needs a pat on the back, because that's a high number, okay? Usually, you do not see that type of high percentage. The school systems are all over 80% that I represent, but they're more like 83, 84, okay? You obviously have surpassed that, and that's attributable to good work from you guys, and as well as we moved to RX benefits, and that was one of the things that we knew that we were going to get out of their particular contract and administration. So even though we are utilizing the generics 87% of the time, they only represent 21% of the spend. So obviously you can see the difference between generic and brand. From a number of scripts standpoint, we're about even, 3.1, and actually went down, a tenth on the member. 17, muchly improved on the one thing that I'm looking at in here is a lot of the things that are being overprescribed. You want all of your folks to be adherent to high blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol, all of those types of things. Obviously, you're going to have antibiotics and acid reflux in there, but I can tell you hydrocodone used to be way up there, and if you look back in 2012, it was number one. Some years ago, it got reclassified, and you cannot get a 90-day supply of it anymore. Okay, that helped. But it is also practice patterns have been watched, and we don't find it being prescribed as much. And if you remember, musculoskeletal went down tremendously. Okay, so that's a lot of what that falls into. So good news around that. And with regard to the top 10 by dollar amount, these are all of the things that we talked about. The two at the top are the two that have the most commercials at night. The Humira is a Golf Pro, Embryl, I don't remember who's doing that one. Those are all of those types of high dollar specialty meds, and we're constantly going to be proactive in bringing in programs to curb that cost, and the coupon subrogation should help out tremendously with that. When we talked about our PPO discounts and the fact that our hospital mix this year was better, you can see that we jumped from the mid-60s back in 2013, and even basically 63% in 2012 to almost 70% on our PPO discounts.
Can I interrupt you just a second? You were saying coupon suffocation on prescriptions. Could you explain that for just a moment?
Remember when we were talking about programs whereby, because you've got low co-pays on your plan, not many people are going to utilize a coupon. Okay, coupons are utilized for brand name medications for plans that have high deductibles or maybe no co-pay structure. And coupons are payment made back to the member when utilizing a high-cost brand name drug. Okay, and the coupons range in dollar size from one brand name drug to another. On some of these high dollars, they're significant. They're well over hundreds of dollars. They can be into the thousands of dollars. And what the coupon subrogation program does is it funnels these specialty medications to the specialty pharmacy. The specialty pharmacy brings the coupon value back to the plan when available.
Okay.
So from a network standpoint, not only do we have the highest discounts,
And didn't we start some kind of program with some kind of incentive? We had talked about, maybe 2 or 3 meetings ago, there was an incentive to the employee to,
This Vital Smart Shopper.
oh, that's on the medical side. That's not on prescription drugs.
Yeah, and we're
It's
still
same.
meeting to kick it off on a broad basis.
okay, I
But
was
it's
just wondering
coming.
how that has affected,
Yes.
if that had, but it hadn't been kicked off yet.
Right.
Okay, I think that's gonna be huge.
No, but on the medical, on the prescription drugs, still, I think if some of the members would look and would inquire, there are, I pay, if I go to CVS 90-day script, okay, it's $30, okay? If I can go to Walmart and get it for 11, okay? It's the same medication, okay? So here I am, I can utilize CVS, okay, and go through our insurance, but it's gonna cost me $30, okay? But I go to Walmart and apparently it's a cash sale as far as they're concerned. They do not go through our insurance.
One of their deals.
And it's $11, okay? And if more of our people would do that, just ask. I mean, but you have to be knowledgeable about it. We have to get the word out to them. Look, check it out. I mean,
And it varies by prescription.
And it absolutely
Walmart could be the
yes.
cheapest one on this one on any given day. And another one.
My family personally, we had to do 3 doses of Tamiflu. 3 different people came down with the flu. That's $200 you go to Walmart. I'm on the high deductible plan, but I don't think it makes a difference as far as Tamiflu is concerned. There's a coupon online, it's $55.
Yep.
Okay, but how many of our members know that?
GoodRx is a site that you can find
Okay.
coupons for just about anything.
But are we advertising that to our members? Because if we have 1,000 members pick up Tamiflu,
No,
that's
we
$150,000 we could be saving.
It's a good point, Phil.
So back to network, if we know that we're pushing right at 69, 70% PPO discounts, God bless you.
Thank you.
Not only do we have high discounts, on the next page, we're talking about having a really good choice of doctors and hospitals because we've been averaging over 98% of all of our claims paid in network. And then finally, we're talking about running our plan very, very lean. 94 cents on the dollar is dedicated to claims. 6 cents on the dollar dedicated to administration and reinsurance. And you guys have heard for the last several years different statistics on this. You know, fully insured plans, the Affordable Care Act tells them that they have to run their book of business basically on 15 cents on the dollar, okay? And Medicare and Medicaid, you're doing a much better job than Medicare, Medicaid, and most insurance carriers. So really running your plan very lean. And then finally, when we talk about some of these benefits, remember this is something to refer back to every year that we talk about, okay, here comes our budget and our costs, and we know we tweaked some benefits last year. Hopefully the plan runs very well, and we don't need to do that for a while. But when we do, this is the kind of report that gives you information of how many people it affects. So when we talk about this benefit, if we change it, it won't affect the vast majority of your people, okay? If we go up on an out-of-pocket max, let's say, okay? And we know that only 10% of your population hits the out-of-pocket max, versus if we went up on a copay for in a large way or something like that, would affect everybody. But that's what this is. And so basically what this tells you, 10% of your membership is responsible for 75% of total paid claims. 90% of your plan members have claims in less than $5,000 annually, and it only represents 1/4. Okay? So food for thought there also. And then, just finally summarize everything for you if you want to refer back to.
Anybody have any questions for Lynn? Matt?
And then just recap real quick on the incentive thing we had talked about. What's the launch date? So we're trying to launch that this year.
Absolutely.
And for the people that haven't been at the previous meetings, just a little synopsis of what that is.
So what this is going to allow you to do is go online, and let's say that you need an MRI, okay? It's going to give you information on all of the in-network providers and what their cost is, okay? And that way you can compare costs, especially if you're participating in a high deductible plan. And it actually, if you choose the low-cost provider, it gives you a financial reward. Because it makes good sense for us to, if we can get a member to go from a $1,000 MRI to a $600 MRI, and we send them a check for $50, $60, $100, whatever the value is on that particular service, it makes good sense for the plan, and it motivates the employee to do it again and tell their friends. That's the emphasis.
And you said it would be strictly voluntary. It's not
It's 100% voluntary.
Lynn, you said a minute ago that the tweaks we made with the increase in premiums, everything we did last year, should be good for a while. Do you anticipate, I think part of the reason we asked for a quarterly report was so we don't get to the end of the year and it's chicken little the sky's falling. So do you anticipate or see anything in any of these numbers that give you concern that we would have to do an increase this fiscal year?
Not at present.
The only thing that concerns
But
me,
we look at this on a quarterly basis. And I
Exactly.
can tell you, on a plan this size, if you're not proactive, it will catch up with you so quickly. I've seen situations where, we have pretty numbers today. We talked about surpluses and all of that kind of thing. I've seen
Change
situations where those surpluses disappeared in months, not years.
Which is the purpose of doing this quarterly.
Exactly.
Philip?
We'll always be on offense.
concerns me is that our medical claims since 2012, we've gone up 10, 20% in total, which is, I think, excellent, extremely excellent. But our prescription claims have gone up 90% since 2012, despite the fact that we've been pushing hard with generics and stuff.
So
I'm sure y'all are looking at formularies and really focusing on this. I'd like to continue trying to focus on that because that is an area that, as you say, can get away from us very, very quickly.
I don't know if you noticed that Humira doubled from last year. I was just noticing.
I saw that. I sure did. For our next meeting, could you possibly give us a breakdown of the, on total claims per employee per month based upon the plan classification as in like high deductible, basic, and advanced? I'm curious, what claims do we actually pay out to the high deductible constituents? What claims do we actually pay out per employee per month for those that are on the basic and on the enhanced plan?
Well, have we seen an increase in participation in the high deductible plan?
Yeah,
No, but
it not
Nothing
a tremendous
significant.
amount, but, we get a few converts every year.
Anyone have anything else? Okay, before we adjourn the meeting, our bylaws require us to meet quarterly. That would make us meeting in June, which I know is after school and people have other plans. Does anyone object to meeting the end of May or sometime in May rather than inconveniencing people in June? It makes no difference to me. I just want to know what your preference is.
May's
kind of tough.
May, but it would need to be after the
I think June.
school ends, even if
Is
it's
June
in May,
better?
because there's so much
Is
going on.
early June better for everybody after school's over?
I think early June's better
So-
than May.
We'll do it early, hopefully the first week in
June.
June, rather than the end of month
Okay.
as we have been doing.
And what about Miss Black's email? Y'all didn't want to talk about
Yes,
that?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
She had sent us an email, and I think what we need to do is simply to have a motion to refer it to you, to me.
Move that we refer
If
that.
somebody would make that motion,
So, I'll second.
okay? I just didn't want her to take the trouble of writing to all of us and then think that we didn't acknowledge her concerns.
Nancy, you didn't set a date in June?
I did not set a date in June.
Do y'all want to?
Yes.
I think some people have
Yes.
said to me that they prefer to know way in advance
Yes.
rather than the week before.
Yes.
So, does anybody have a calendar? I don't have,
Do we need to meet,
I don't know how to,
do we still want
So-
to meet late?
So the
School's not going to be
the
out.
regular board meeting is on
Do
the
it early.
first Wednesday.
Thank you all for coming.
June 6th.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it.
Bye,
Very
Bert.
clear. Thank you
Good
so
to
much. Have a
see
good
you.
evening.
Thank you.
good
Can we
point.
do it a little bit
Everybody's out
earlier?
of school, so would
Yeah.
you prefer a meeting like at 2 in the afternoon? Is that okay for Mona?
Some of them still work summer.
Oh, okay,
Oh,
well
you
then
do?
we'll keep it at 5:30. We
I mean,
have
it
an
can be
attractive
not
room
2
that's
o'clock.
What time y'all get off?
right towards the building.
She gets off at 3, so we could do it like at 3.
Yeah, 2:30 is not workable, but
3:30?
3:30 would be okay.
3:30? Is that okay with everybody, 3:30?
What day?
We haven't picked, I don't think.
You want the,
What day y'all?
what date was the board meeting, John?
Wednesday the 6th.
So we could do it Tuesday, June 5th? Is
Sure.
that okay?
Mhm.
And Mona, if you'd send us out an email,
I will.
because a lot of us, half of us aren't here.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much, but man makes me too old. That's okay with Lynn? Now, will you have a quarterly report for them?
In June, I'll be able to report to you through April.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Second. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Thank y'all.